Look, a week from today at the Harris Theater, a trial is taking place. This trial has taken nearly 2,500 years to come to this point. It's the trial of Pericles. I could tell you a lot more about this Greek mythology, but, I have on the live line with me today attorneys for this trial. One, Patrick Collins from King and Spalding, who was part of the prosecution team, and Sarah King from the Clifford Law Offices, who's part of the defense for Pericles. Good morning, Sarah. Good morning, Patrick, and welcome to WVON. How are you both today?
Good morning, Rufus. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah. Good morning, Rufus. Patrick Collins. I'm glad to be on the show. Thank you.
Well, it's good to have both of you here. This is obviously pretty important to have these high-powered attorneys as just a part of the team for this trial. And I didn't go much into who Pericles is or why this is necessary. So, Patrick, why don't you tell us, who is this dude and why are you guys participating in this trial?
Well, Rufus, this dude was a very tough military hero thousands of years ago who decided on his own in the fragile birthplace of democracy to decide that he was going to just change the rules of the citizenship game and disenfranchise thousands of people during a time when he as a leader believed what was best for him was to take away the rights to vote, the rights to serve on a jury for thousands of Athenians. And we're representing the good citizens of Athens, and on behalf of the people who are disenfranchised, are prosecuting Pericles for taking away the fundamental rights that you have in a democracy, the right to serve on a jury, the right to vote, and doing it without the democratic process. So we're here to go after Sarah's client and go after him hard.
Well, Sarah, what have you to say in defense of your client?
Well, thank you, Rufus. And first, I'm honored to be on your show, but also to defend this great man, Pericles. And when we talk about Pericles, we're talking about one of the godfathers of the Golden Age, but also one of the protectors of both the dominion of Athens and democracy. So you couldn't get somebody who loves democracy and wants to protect it more than Pericles. He's certainly the complete opposite of a tyrant. And the law that Patrick referred to, the citizenship law, was one of the first laws of its time to craft an immigration and citizenship process. And contrary to what Patrick said, it actually was a law that granted citizenship to many members of the middle class, of the working class, to women and their children. And the people that didn't like it are exactly the people that have brought this lawsuit, who are the upper 1% of Athens, the aristocrats of Athens. Those are the quote-unquote disenfranchised by this law. So this is certainly a politically motivated lawsuit against a man who was incredibly progressive for his time in crafting a path to citizenship for many in Athens where there wouldn't have been a path for them before.
Well, I don't know how the National Hellenic Museum came up with this at this time, but there's so much here that just seems so relevant to what's taking place today. Why is this so serious? And you guys, I need both of you defending me if I should ever have a reason to. But why did you all decide to take this on? And it does appear that you've done work, study, preparation for this trial.
We have in our free time.
Yeah, Rufus, and we've been privileged, Sarah and I, to participate in multiple years. And one of the things the Hellenic Museum has done so well for sort of the civic education of the city, I believe this is the 10th year. And each year, the Hellenic Museum has taken on, one of the broader issues of the day. Last year we did Socrates. We've done a number of the sort of Greek figures. And Rufus, what's amazing to me as someone who's participated for literally almost a decade, how relevant these ancient stories are to what's going on today. And, we're living in a fragile democracy here. We have a former president who took it upon himself to change the rules of the game. And this is really the first voter suppression act. It's interesting, Sarah, tries to couch this in terms of a Democratic act, but this was the first voter suppression act, and he decided to disenfranchise people immediately, and one doesn't have to strain too far. This was the sort of primitive version of Make Athens Great Again by Pericles, and I think it's pretty obvious some of the modern day analogies here. But I do have to give a shout out to the Hellenic Museum, because and Sarah and I are essentially, actors in this legal drama, but the issues that are presented in this case and presented for a decade by the Hellenic Museum are really modern day, really important for people to think modern day. What is a democracy? What are the absolute elements of a democracy that we cannot change? And if we do change them, we don't have democracy anymore.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with Patrick more. The Hellenic Museum does an incredible job. Every year we do this, of picking an issue that is from the past, but it highlights an issue that we're still dealing with today, right? What is a citizen? How are we going to define citizenship? How do we deal with immigration? And every year they've done that to both highlight, hey, we're dealing with these same issues from ancient time, but also what's the most important voice in this conversation? And that's us, right? The citizens of the United States, the voters, the people of Chicago. So one of the very fun things about the trial, which takes place next Wednesday at the Harris Theater, is that when you come to the trial and you're an audience member, you actually vote, right? You cast your vote for the final verdict. So in that way, the National Hellenic Museum also just highlights the importance of jury service, of our civil duty, that we are the voices that are weighing in on these important questions. So we always enjoy that. We enjoyed that last year with Socrates, and I'm sure this year we will be able to show that Pericles, as history has shown, is the defender of the world's first constitution and is certainly not usurping the rights of anyone.
Wow, this is so fun. I'm talking with Sarah King from the Clifford Law Office and Patrick Collins from King and Spalding. They are participating in the trial of Pericles, taking place next Wednesday at the Harris Theater, put on by the National Hellenic Museum. You can get tickets at nationalhellenicmuseum.org, but we'll talk much more about all of this. There will be a dynamic live event. Nationally renowned attorneys, just as I mentioned, with others, will argue a case regarding Pericles, the great hero of Athenian democracy, before a panel of celebrated judges. The trial of Pericles is nearly 2,500 years in the making. In 451 BC, Pericles changed the Athenian constitution to restrict citizenship to those born to two Athenian parents. He said this action was necessary to protect Athens from foreign influence, while many others saw this as tyrannical because citizens lost their civil liberties, including the right to vote. Some speculated that Pericles would have faced trial for his actions had he survived the Great Plague of Athens. Now the National Hellenic Museum brings together these top litigators to argue the case and determine whether or not Athens' revered statesmanship truly attacked democracy. Sarah, you mentioned you study up on this in your spare time. This seems like something that's going to take a little bit more than your spare time to try and put together an argument either way.
Yes, it does, but we get a lot of help from our partners at the National Hellenic Museum who really help us with the research and to try to be as historically accurate as possible. But yes, I mean, the trial itself is a full trial, right? There's an opening, there's a closing, there are two witnesses this year, so you'll hear from both my client, Pericles, and then the prosecution is calling a witness of their own. So it definitely certainly takes some time, but is well worth it, and for me, well worth it to defend this innocent man against these allegations.
And Patrick, this is not your first time doing this, so what drives you into doing these and spending the time that it takes to be smart on all this stuff?
It is a civic opportunity, Rufus, that I've enjoyed. I mean, every year I've done this, I said, okay, you know what, I'm getting long in the tooth. I think this will be my last year. And then I get the call, and I remember how fun it is. And, as Sarah mentioned earlier, everybody in the audience, and there's typically 650, 700 people in the audience, Rufus, and everybody walks in and they can either they get a blue chip and a white chip, and they get to vote guilty or not guilty. So it's sort of the ultimate reality TV show. And it's just a lot of fun. The judges who conduct the proceedings are some of the best in the business. It's great to draw swords with Sarah and her team, and we just have a lot of fun doing it. But it's one of those things. My kids come and they find history interesting for one night. So I really can't say enough about it as just a civic opportunity. And then these analogies between 2,500 years ago and today, Rufus, they just sort of jump off the page. So bottom line, I do it because it's fun and it's a night out, but it's also educational.
I would tell you, I think in some ways in my soul, I'm a frustrated lawyer. I love legal dramas. I love legal books. I'm excited about this, excited just to kind of hear the arguments that you all put forth and to learn, because there's always so much that's there that really teaches us, in this case, about some Greek mythology, some history, and how those things apply to today. And Patrick, I didn't miss any of what you said, because I agree with you wholeheartedly about the things that move forward as they make these things make the connection to today. Have, in the times in which this has been done before, have you been surprised by the audience's take on this? Does this help you in the work that you do that you actually get paid for? Or what are your thoughts on how people respond to what you do here?
I love seeing... go ahead.
Sarah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Pat.
Well, believe it or not, I don't do it for this reason, but I've gotten 2 clients out of these cases where people have come to me afterwards and said, you know what, I have this problem. Can you help me? And so my law firm likes it because I've occasionally gotten some business out of it. But I really think it's the participation of the audience that has been most meaningful and that derives most satisfaction. Go ahead, Sarah.
I was going to say, for me, it's really fun. So in my real job, right, I am not a defense attorney. I am a plaintiff's attorney. So both years that I've been involved, including last year, I've been on the defense side. So that's really been fun to sort of be on the other side of the coin. Last year, I was able to defend Socrates. So it's fun to get up there and kind of have a little bit of a different take on a case than I usually do when I'm in, the real courtroom here at the Daly Center in Chicago. So that's been fun and surprising how much I enjoyed being a defense attorney. But I also think it's interesting to see how the audience takes these historical issues and kind of when they put it in a modern frame, what they come up with. So last year when we did the trial of Socrates, which was a real trial, right? This year, the Pericles trial never happened because he died. But the trial of Socrates happened in history. And in history, he was found guilty, but at the National Hellenic Museum last year, he was found not guilty. So we prevailed. So it's always surprising to see if that's the outcome, too, when the audience does put a modern take on it and how far we have come in 2,500 years on these issues, but also how far we have to go.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting next year when you do the trial of a former president of the United States. Who knows how that will go.
I'm not signing up for that defense job. They'll have to find someone else.
That's what a lot of people have said, apparently. That seems to be the case. So you mentioned what you do when you're not doing this. What kind of clients do you work with?
So I do plaintiff's personal injury. Our office does all types of personal injury, wrongful death, catastrophic injury cases. Myself, I really sort of focus on medical negligence, wrongful death cases, and cases that involve injury to people from medical providers or pharmaceutical companies. So there's civil jury trials, generally in the Daly Center all over Illinois, but generally I'm over in the Daly Center trying those cases.
Great. And how about you, Patrick? What do you do when you're not doing this?
Well, Rufus, I'm a former federal prosecutor. Did a lot of public corruption work when I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office for 12 years. I've been in private practice now for over a decade, and a lot of what I do are internal investigations for companies. I do the occasional defense of individuals, and otherwise do a fair amount of civil work myself. So really have a pretty varied practice, but sort of the bread and butter is investigative in nature.
Fantastic. It's Patrick Collins and Sarah King. Patrick Collins of King and Spalding, Sarah King of Clifford Law Offices, the prosecution and defense respectively, in the trial of Pericles, taking place next Wednesday, April 17th at 7 p.m. at the Harris Theater. You can get tickets on sale now at the nationalhellenicmuseum.org. Students get discounts. Thank you both. This is fun. I'm looking forward to the trial next week, and I so appreciate you both coming on and sharing these thoughts with us this morning.
Awesome. Thank you, Rufus.
Thank you, Rufus. Make sure you vote the blue chip on Wednesday night, okay, Rufus?
No, other one.
Oh, we'll see. We'll talk about it afterwards. Good luck to
all right.
both of you.
If you want to talk before, we can talk too. All right. There's
jury
no
tampering.
problem talking to a jury now.
Jury. Oh, we got all kind of stuff going on here. All right, Patrick, Sarah, be well. We'll talk to you again.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for being with us.